It's loading. Okay, we are apparently alive and well on the internet. This will be recorded, and this will be the beginning of the end or the end of the beginning by Twitter and making it a user-owned co-op. So now that we're starting the recording, yes, let's all be friends and introduce ourselves and go around where we're coming from, what we're hoping to learn or get out of this. And sure, James, why don't you kick us off and then we'll sort of go around the horn.
Okay, since my picture's up here, I guess. Jim McRitchie, I'm a shareholder activist or advocate, not a Carl Icahn type. I'm a small shareholder. And what I'm aiming to get out of it is, I think, more the idea of people coming together around a company and trying to take action rather necessarily than specific action around Twitter, although action around Twitter would be great because I think Twitter does have an important, it's been an important mechanism for democracy. I see you now, Mark. You're up there.
Yay, something happened.
So that's it. And I've known Mark for 20 years.
Okay, well, maybe with that introduction, I'll go next. Mark Latham speaking to you from Vancouver. I'm a recovering Wall Streeter. I quit Wall Street 21 years ago, got interested in reforming corporations. I've worked with Jim on that from the share owner side for many years. But then I also got very interested in co-ops. I've been studying them for several years, and especially the idea of having internet or software co-op is something I've put a lot of thought into. And so I'm thrilled about this, this project to buy Twitter or do something related to buying Twitter, getting more user ownership and control of internet platforms. Great idea. Thank you, Danny, for getting us together. Go ahead, next.
I'm Matt. I'm in the room with Danny here in Oakland. I am co-CEO of a company called Josephine, which is a web platform, education curricula, and community that helps home cooks sell their food to the public. So we are kind of a platform of interest to many in the kind of platform co-op movement. We are currently committed to at least partial cooperative ownership and aspirationally full cooperative ownership eventually. So these conversations are super exciting to us, and we're in the same kind of liminal space of figuring out what it means to be a co-op in a transitional economy.
So there's a Rosen online we haven't heard from.
Paige, why don't you introduce yourself now that we're all live and direct?
And my ping pong stopped. My name is Paige. I'm product manager at Unitive, a startup in San Francisco. And I also organize tech workers at the Tech Workers Coalition. And we're really interested in alternative business structures.
And who else do we have with us chiming in? I see a
Rosen
floating icon. So it goes. Okay, well, so we'll try to keep things, make everyone happy, be safe for everyone schedule-wise. So I'll introduce myself. I know that we have another few folks showing up, but hey, they'll enter in. I'm Danny. I do product design. That's how I put my sociology training to work these days. And I've been somewhat, how do I put it? Captaining, I guess, at least the Twitter account for Buy Twitter. Thought it was a great thought experiment when it came up, when Nathan Schneider, who wrote this piece in The Guardian a little while ago, put the idea out. And the campaign has caught a lot of attention to the point where nowadays people say stuff on Twitter like, hey, we should boycott caught this thing. So, hey, have you guys heard about the Buy Twitter edition? Actual, echo around the Twitterverse or whatever they call that. I'm super excited to hang with you guys because I know that the petition has been out for a few months now, and we're at this juncture of, well, do we just print it all out, all 3,300 signatures, and just dump it at the front stoop of Twitter, or do we try to parlay it into something of a proposal? So we're going to try a little bit of the latter, and that's what I'm really keen on, is seeing if we can parlay it. So let's turn back to Jim for some kind of ghost story or campfire story or hero's journey or whatever of a past shareholder activist endeavor. That would help us kick off what we can be doing and learn from you.
Okay, well, one thing I would add is California used to have a cooperative development program. I used to head that, so that was many, many years ago. And that didn't last very long. Okay, so I've been involved in lots of different campaigns, most of them just around proposals. So like one proposal type is majority voting. So for the longest time, most corporate directors were elected by a plurality basis. So if no one was running against them and they had the normal, North Korean type ticket with one person for each slot, then as long as they got one vote, then they were elected. And actually, majority vote, I think, came out as an alternative to proxy access, which would allow people to nominate their own people for the board. Anyway, so majority vote, after just a few years, majority vote really caught on, and people had a hard time defending why it is that they shouldn't require at least a majority vote for people who are running unopposed. After all, if they got unelected, the board could just nominate another clone of the person who got but hopefully they would elect somebody better. So, and in my experience, most of the campaigns that I've worked on have taken years. I was talking to Danny earlier, and I gave him the example of Reed's, a little soda company. It's $50 million versus $13.5 billion. And at Reed's, I've been working on it for years and years, introducing a proposal every year. The founder is a major shareholder, even more of a major shareholder than the people that founded Twitter. This founder owns about 25%, and it turns out that his friends and associates own another 10% or so. And so this year we actually threatened a proxy contest after many years of filing individual proposals. And it looked like he was going to have to spend quite a bit of money to fend this off. And so rather than do that, he kind of caved in and he appointed 4 out of 5 new board members. So victories can come, though they usually take quite a bit of effort, and they usually take many years. So, and the idea of filing a proposal at Twitter, I think, is something that can be done. One thing is that if you want to file something that's going to get at least 3%, because if you don't get at least 3%, then you can't come back the following year with another similar proposal.
So do you want to tell us what the new board you're hoping for them to do with Reed's?
Well, Reed's were hoping to make money. That's what, even though I was headed the co-op department or whatever program in California for the government, I've gone on and done other things. And what we did is basically he had a non-functioning board. He had 4 friends on it. He had his meditation guru on the board. He had you know, a doctor of, I don't know, some sort of, I forget what the medicine is, you know, where they dilute everything like crazy. Yeah, a homeopathic doctor on, anyway, they used to work a lot with the Grateful Dead. So, and he's, you know, he's a cool guy. I like him, but you know, he's never really seriously tried to make money for the company. He's always seen the company as a vehicle for his own fame, more or less. And so, you know, we thought after 20 years, maybe it's about time that he started making a profit. And so now he's got a board that looks like a real board, and it looks like they're going to make money. And the stock has already gone up 60% since maybe 69%, I guess, since we started our campaign. So it's been successful that way. So.
Yeah. So sometimes activism is simply for a better bottom line. Yeah,
that's usually what, like say Yahoo, there was a campaign at Yahoo many years ago where Eric Jackson did an internet campaign and he put up a plan B. And although he lost, I think he had some things on a proxy. He lost, but Yahoo adopted a few of the things that he had suggested. So you can have an impact.
Excellent. Okay, so of course, the history of this campaign was not to dilute or to destroy Twitter's business. It was to keep it. And what I'll do in just a few minutes is give a quick recap of the campaign for those who haven't heard of it before, who haven't followed along. And I'm going to try to substitute in for Sonia, who's been to Twitter shareholder meetings before. She's on the subway right now. And hopefully a little bit of context and background will tee us up to dig into what kind of proposal we want to get going. Like I mentioned to Jim and Mark earlier, Sonia actually just started drafting one. So we have a shareholder who has enough. So we're actually going to get into some real stuff later on, like in about 10 or so minutes. But just to give you guys a little bit of background and then to see what kind of questions you have about it, let's get a short story. So I mentioned earlier that sometime in September, this guy Nathan put together an article in The Guardian saying that he had a plan to save Twitter. And Twitter needed to be saved, if, subjectively speaking, because the stock price was dropping and there was discussions of a real whole buyout. I know that Disney, for example, was one of the buyers. Salesforce famously did and then did not tender a bid. And you can look at wearetwitter.global at the petition that went up. There's a little video that even has all the icons of all the other companies that were trying to buy, or that were in conversations, let's say, with Twitter. This is not my forte. This is sort of legal language, so permit me if a few mistakes. Anyway, there was a Guardian article. There was one in Der Spiegel, which is a popular newspaper in Germany. About a month later, an article in Wired magazine ran. We threw up a Twitter account, and when I say we, it was Nathan and maybe 30 or 50 or 100, depending on how you count it, other random organizers and people who had day jobs, had other things, but wanted to see this thought experiment to its most concrete and logical end. So we got together on this thing called Loomio, started chatting about what we could do, what we couldn't do. We drafted a petition. And that's now, like I said, at wearetwitter.global. Fast forward to about 3 weeks ago, let's say, just around the beginning of November, first week or so, there was a good stream of signatures coming in. And we got up to around 3,300 signatures as of today. Now, an earlier version of the petition that was on this thing called Action Network, which is a different platform for gathering signatures, had a little checkbox where people could say, I'm a shareholder and I will commit my voting rights to do something, depending on where this petition goes, what it develops into. So we have about 300 people who say they're shareholders out of this 3,300. Now, the petition itself was a little vague and a little unclear because Twitter is a publicly traded company. Its stock was down and people were upset about it, but it's not like people couldn't mobilize worldwide and just buy all the stock. That's already the way it works. What was curious to some people and sort of, I don't know, new and strange to others was, well, what if we transformed the way Twitter's corporate structure was set up? What if it was less like a regular for-profit company and more like, for example, REI, which is an outdoor goods and flashlights and camping gear type of company, where all the consumers are owners. And because they're owners, they also have voting rights and they can elect people to the board, and they have a whole separate set of communication and power, and access already built in, and it doesn't really matter how much cash they've put into the company, how much capital they've got up. There's another example like the Green Bay Packers, which was featured in the Wired article. And this guy wrote in Wired saying, yeah, the Green Bay Packers is the only football team that is publicly owned. It's not owned by some generally white male, jet set dude who's most off of his team. It's owned by the people of Wisconsin. There's a foundation that holds the company, and they have shares. The NFL actually is so incensed by this. At some point, they banned other football teams from doing that. But the Green Bay Packers has awesome fan base. People love the Packers who don't even know where exactly Green Bay is. So the argument in the petition that started to percolate and that got a lot of these signatures was, hey, what if Twitter was saved, not just from a big Wall Street buyer, but from its, I guess, more divisive elements? What if there were people amongst the user base who said, yeah, this is a great platform for democracy, whatever that means to you. This is a great public utility, and it should be held in perpetuity by all of us as users and owners. Okay, so how the hell to work on that, how to turn that into real action? The last piece of this recap is there's been a couple of sort of parallel efforts in addition to a petition to meet people at Twitter, to try and get a serious enough plan, a business model that's respectable enough, that makes the case. That says, hey, if you're like the Green Bay Packers, your people, your users will love you like they love the Packers. Your revenue streams, maybe through subscriptions or whatever, will be more reliable. We don't know. So in having this call today, part of the joy of this speculation is we can get some of those ideas, some of those speculations into a proposal and submit it for the next annual shareholder meeting, which is in April. And we can do other things too in the interim, but that's really what we can sort of draw the line in the sand around is like, hey, we have these ideas, we have some basis for, some support for them, both from a number of shareholders, but also from some evidence from other examples. Twitter, what do you want to do with this? Can you look into the possibility of transforming into a co-op or maybe something else, like a B Corp, which is another form, or a nonprofit, like other big entities out there that do services. So that brings us over 4 months all the way to today. We've got about 3,300 people signed up. We've got us here on the call together, and we've got real access through some shareholders to submitting a proposal. I'm going to pause there, and since that was a full 4-month recap, anything else that people want to ask about or that they saw happen over the last few months that are interesting to them, there's a space for that, and we can dig up more perspective before we move on to building a proposal.
We could also ask one person to introduce himself. William, we see you there. Hello. Now you're on mute. Okay, now talk.
Hi,
Talk, we can hear you. Oh, no, we can't hear you. I see the icon going on and off here. Oh, now speak, we can hear you.
Hi, my name is William Cerf. I'm calling you from Manchester, New Hampshire. And I've been interested in cooperative enterprises for a very long time, although I'm independently poor. I don't have very much money. I live on Social Security, but I would love to be able to join some kind of a co-op arrangement where people could buy shares of Twitter. So let's say if I had $50 or $100, I could send that to this co-op and they could buy the shares. But I'm really thrilled to be on this call and looking forward to learning more.
Thanks, William. Good to have you.
Thank you, Danny.
Yeah.
So, Danny, I have a question. Have we mapped out a formal co-op conversion process that's been done for any other essentially like incorporated companies that have moved in a similar fashion towards cooperative ownership? Because I know it's been done, but it's still a specific legal issue with a handful of experts, I think.
We haven't. Yeah, that was one possible thing we were going to spend our time on today, but it felt like maybe Twitter should do that. Maybe they should get a legal or finance intern to reach out to folks who have done this and do that due diligence. And as you said, yeah, there are other examples out there that I'm sure they can lean on.
Yeah.
This group has really been more, I think, focused on putting up the lightning rod.
One of the people that's involved, I think, is Tim Hewitt, who has had a lot of experience with worker co-ops. I think he's still working for the Arizmendi group in the Bay Area. And he'd be a good person to talk to.
Absolutely. Come on in. Oh, boy. Okay. Fine. Yeah, please do. We just got a whole wave of new participants coming in. Other questions or other anecdotes from the last few months of this campaign that people want to ask or share?
Well, there have been companies taken over by co-ops. Generally, they're private companies. When somebody retires and somebody sets up a worker co-op, or if they're public companies, it's generally been through an ESOP, an employee stock ownership plan, and it may function as a co-op, but they're not usually incorporated as a co-op. Although most of the time those are temporary because they're not incorporated as a co-op, so eventually they sell their shares and the co-op aspect goes away.
I think the ESOP can be sort of like a trust that holds all the shares.
Right.
And I'm not quite, I know very little about that, but the employees don't have much rights in the way of one worker, one vote, etc.
Yeah, the trust can pass on, though typically they don't. Like say, even in the case of when the workers bought out Rath Meatpacking, I mean, the union basically helped buy out the plant, but it was held in trust for the workers. The workers got to elect trustees, but the trustees appointed the board members. So, and like say United Airlines, when they had an ESOP, it was even more distant. So.
Yeah, and I believe that the United Airlines ESOP dissolved the ESOP somehow. Yeah. I can't remember how they did that, but they did do that.
Yeah.
Paige, maybe you could share some perspective coming in from working with a startup and doing labor organizing. Share a little bit about what makes you see potential in co-ops, maybe especially for Twitter, if not others.
Paige, your mic is off. There we go.
Oh, you hear me now?
Yep.
Yeah. So the Tech Workers Coalition started as partnerships with local unions, Unite here in SEIU, seeing how we could promote awareness about groups that were trying to unionize on some of our tech campuses. And I think our group has been really interested in that kind of work, but then we've also gotten to points where we saw more potential for more interesting disruption, just totally restructuring the business plans of companies. So our group has really been thinking this is a really interesting thought experiment. I think a lot of us who have venture-backed companies don't see how it's really possible, or we don't see the feasibility of it, but we are really interested in just a campaign growing around it and spreading awareness.
And so we've got a couple of folks joining us. I'm gonna do the magic of video and say, this is Anair and Theodora Manuela. They're gonna get on the line. And I'm gonna ask Matt to share a quick anecdote while they get dialed in, literally. I know that Josephine's been trying to find that appropriate balance without having some kind of built-in, let's say, conflicts, by figuring out how its investors can accept and even maybe embrace some amount of cooperative ownership without that being like like I said, some inevitable conflict down the line where that piece gets handled. So maybe you can share a little bit about where you guys are at with that tension and how you're moving forward.
Sure. Yeah. So my company Josephine is a startup, and like I said, we work with home cooks to sell their food through a platform, and we work with about 200 cooks now. We've got a team of 11, and have raised a few $1 million from some impact investors, some traditional angel investors. But there's always been this component of our desire to long term be cooperatively owned by our cooks, and the tension around that is that a lot of traditional investors, the folks that probably own a majority of Twitter right now, are playing the game of long term capital gains, and getting folks comfortable with a model that might be more dividend based, or might not look like the big upside that people have come to expect from venture investment or Wall Street investment is difficult. And so we've been kind of striking this balance of having conversations with impact investors around our model, which is perfectly fundable as honestly like a venture capital investment, but then getting them comfortable with this notion of long-term wanting to turn over ownership cooperatively. And I think that what's interesting about this is Twitter is obviously at scale. It's at a mature state that we certainly think like would be sufficient for something to be generating a sustainable income for itself to keep its operations going. But Twitter hasn't quite figured it out. I think that if Twitter was making money hand over fist, we wouldn't be having this conversation, unfortunately. Wouldn't be an opportunity to buy it out from existing investors just based on controlled. And B, if there was, it would be a very different conversation. And so I think that like figuring out as part of this and whatever proposal we put forward about cooperative conversion, we'll have to have a notion of how does that cooperative give profit back to the risk capital that people put in early on, and then also how does it generate sufficient revenue to be self-sustaining. It probably can't be through one-time sale of co-op shares. It probably has to be through some ongoing revenue model, and unfortunately the company hasn't really figured that out. So that will probably be in the hands of whatever cooperative comes out of this if it's successful. So yeah, I'm no expert by any means. There's a lot of folks, Democracy at Work, which started Arizmendi's, or the executive director, who's a friend, and named CFO of Arizmendi's, and the Sustainable Economies Law Center and the Workers Lab. There's all sorts of organizations here in Oakland that have expertise in this stuff, and we've been lucky to have them as supporters of ours. And I think that my feeling would be that if we're going to present a proposal and make it credible, that we ought to get input of some of the legal experts, and not just kind of put it on the plate of a Twitter intern. But there's a lot of outstanding questions, and I'm certainly not qualified to answer them.
All right. So let's introduce the other folks who joined. They have a little more background in other things. There's Aner and Theodora and Manuela. So why don't we just go around? You guys can say where you're at and what you're curious about in this conversation of potentially transforming Twitter into a cooperative, and all the makeup of that.
Enable my microphone. I don't want there to be.
Not at all. You can just click the video thing, and that'll.
I'm just wondering if at what point it starts to create a lot of.
Check. I think we're good.
We definitely want them all muted, probably.
A lot of echo.
Are you guys hearing any echo at all? Or are you good?
Can you hear me now?
Barely.
Sounds good to me.
Jim, you're really loud, by the way.
Am I? Sorry.
Yes. So is your chair, your squeaky chair. I don't know what we can do about that, but just to let you know. But Anna, I see your mouth.
We can't hear you, Mark.
Yeah, Danny, you've got your microphone muted.
Why don't you keep going? I think.
Is mine working now?
Can you guys hear it now?
Maybe I'll just stick close to you.
Yeah,
That way
wait,
it's
it's coming.
Does that work? Okay, so I'm Aner. I'm with Pine Investments. We invest on behalf of a single family, or now actually two families that are committed, have committed 100% of their assets to investing in with a strong focus on and sustainability. We invest in kind of a very broad range of strategies, sectors, asset classes, and sort of a central tenet of our approach is that we care more about, or as much about, the how as we do about the what, right? So there's sort of questions around.
Your microphone is not working.
Infuriating.
Sonia, what's your name?
Here. I just do not understand. So turn off.
Yeah, she told me I should go with it.
I'm not enjoying it. Check, check.
That works, right?
Can you guys hear us again?
Yeah.
Okay. So
So it's us.
mute your
No,
noise.
I'm,
And we're still good.
all right.
Okay.
Okay, so I'll make it quick. So as I was saying, a big focus for us, we like to say we care as much about the how as the what. So, not just which sectors we invest in, but really kind of fundamental issues around who benefits, who takes the risk when things go bad, and who does well when things go well. And so that translates into questions around ownership, around governance. We've certainly invested quite a bit in cooperatives, both directly, things like we're investors in Namaste Solar, the residential solar installer in Colorado, or through intermediaries like Shared Capital in Minneapolis or the Working World in New York. Now, those are all examples of, largely kind of very small, old school, I guess, cooperatives, for lack of a better word. We have no experience or expertise around kind of these broader distributed ownership models. I've certainly taken an interest in that in those sorts of conversations around how that might work. And followed models like attempts to start a ride-sharing app that has distributed ownership through its drivers in Israel and things like that. But honestly, not a lot of direct expertise there either.
Okay. So more curious than competent so far, but that's what it makes to make this weird platform co-op thing happen. So I'm going to do the magic floaty thing, hand this over to Theodora, and then we'll get some quick intros.
It's weird. We're on multiple videos here. So my name is Theodora Titonis. I'm a former founder of a mobile security machine learning startup that was acquired approximately 4 years ago. So I consider myself lucky that I escaped the VC trap and still have part of my soul that I'm still trying to bring back from 3 years of commitment for the acquiring company. But I was lucky in the fact that I did bootstrap that asset that was acquired through a services company where we provided cybersecurity to defense and intelligence agencies. But through all that, very much a learning process and a beneficial experience, because I got to see really what happened to my vision, my product, when the company was acquired. So, I'm a true believer in innovation and technology. I'm certainly more of a product CEO than a sales CEO, and really want to find of creating startups. So what I've been spending a lot of my time on recently, and what I look to see the next 5 to 10 years for me, is building a incubator for cooperatives. And a major priority would be separating the capital from the equity, right? So think of Wash Lending Club for cooperatives. So I want to see great products being built that people want, that people need, and the people that build them actually own them when it comes time to take part of the value that they've created. So that's where I'm coming from.
Okay, so as we're passing along, I'll say we have about 45 minutes until someone else occupies this physical space, and we all become floating balls of energy up to the internet. So let's do some quick intros, and then we can shift gears to talk about the proposal or proposals.
Okay, wonderful. So my name is Manuela. I'm visiting from Germany, and I am a facilitator for collaborative project design, and I'm very much interested in the soft skills that are needed to set up collaborative projects with different interesting tools around that. And I have a lot of questions. Like I was following just the campaign recently and looking into, okay, how do you deal with decision making, and yeah, how are you set up? And I'm wondering who is actually the team that's behind that project and behind that really high aspirations of shifting something in the system around. I'm wondering what are the needs of the people who want to make this project happen, because to make it sustainable, it's also to look at the team and the resources and the needs. And so I'm very interested how this is organized and can be supported. And yeah, I'm here to learn and contribute what I can.
Great. You can lay that down so
Yeah.
it's not shaking.
Yeah.
This,
Okay.
I'm seeing where there's the monitors. Anyway, my name is Sonia. I am a organizer. Normally, I work, in politics. And normally I organize around housing issues or pro-housing renters. But during RIP Twitter in February, I was just like scrolling, and everybody was really upset. I mean, I'm a super heavy Twitter user, and I just really thought, well, I value Twitter, so I'll just buy some, because each share is only $15. So that's how I got involved. Then I saw you guys also have the same idea, which is users should become owners, which, I mean, I went to their shareholder meeting last year, so I was like doing this anyway. I'm excited to meet everybody.
You want to say briefly what RIP Twitter was?
Oh, when Twitter announced that they were going to roll out a algorithmic news feed, people who had left Facebook when Facebook rolled out their algorithmic news feed, I was one of those people. I never really liked Facebook that much anyway, but it was just became completely unusable because they kept showing me the same posts over and over. I already saw it. It was terrible. So everybody was freaking out, and they were like, this is why we left Facebook. And then the excuse from Twitter was like, well, our shareholders want it. And I was like, well, there's half as many monthly active users as there are outstanding. Each share is $15. So like 2 shares, we'd be the only stockholders. But yeah, so I feel like we could make some noise. I learned a lot of lessons from political organizing anyway. I feel like this is pretty, actually, there's like some pretty cool things that are pretty achievable.
Right on. Thanks. Okay. Apologies again for all the screeches and my inability to do operating on the mic. So we've got a chunk of time, and Sonia was humble enough not to mention that she already started drafting a proposal. So for those of you who just came in, to set some foundation, we have a petition. There's thousands of people who signed it. We also have folks who signed it who have said they're shareholders. And myself, other folks in this room, know shareholders who have enough, I think it's $2,000, to submit a proposal to the next AGM, the next general meeting, which is great. We can put some of this petition into a proposal, and at least one proposal, because if we have multiple people who have $2,000 or more of shares, each one of them can tender a proposal, whatever the jargon is, push up the hill. So we've got that. And before we get in there, I know Manuela asked, who the heck are we? And I apologize for not better setting us up for the introduction. So I'll just quickly say, who are we? Well, we are the folks who are in this conversation now who are effectively organizing around buying shares. The We Are Twitter or Buy Twitter hashtag campaign was this guy, Nathan Schneider, although he's so emphatically modest about like, no, I just wrote the article. But there's been about 30, maybe 100 people, depending how you count it. A lot in Germany, a lot in the UK, some in Ireland, and then a few in the US. And out of that, say 30 to 100 people, they've all been on this platform called Loomio, changing up ideas, drafting documents, putting the petition together, circulating it, making contacts with the press. So it's been a fairly loose bag of cats, making noise and trying to get attention. I personally, Danny, this guy, said the other week, well, heck, why don't we figure out what to do with this? And then Sonia messaged me on Twitter saying, hey, yeah, there's a lot of great stuff happening. I've been to a shareholder meeting. Like there's 40 people who show up.
Yeah, it's awesome.
That's it. You can meet the founder, you can meet the owner. It's networking like you can't believe. And we could go there. So that's who we are in the room and on the Hangout here online. So what I'm going to do now is into the chat, I'm going to drop a link to this document. And I'm also going to say it out loud for those of you who just want to type it in. So if you want to go to bit.ly, bit.ly /buy Twitter proposal 1. So again, bit.ly /buy BUI Twitter proposal and then the number 1. That takes us to a doc that is a rough draft of something that takes the petition, which is wearetwitter.global. I just dropped that into the chat too. Bridge, right, is what we put together right now. The chasm is this proposal. We're coming from one side, which is this petition and all the ideas we have around it, all the interests we have. So here's what I'm proposing is basically we have about 40-ish minutes to hang together and we can either hack at this, we can talk about it, we can do a little of both. I'm open to ideas. Maybe Sonia, you want to say what would be a good way since you started it off?
Let me just say a little bit. So I have a couple of things that I printed out. So this, we already sort of alluded to it, but the way to get something on basically the agenda for the shareholder meeting. The shareholder meeting last year, it occurred May 25th. So it'll be something right around there, end of May. The deadline to get a proposal on the agenda is Friday, the day after tomorrow, and you need somebody who owns $2,000 worth of stock, and that's a SEC rule. That's a federal rule, not a Twitter rule. Twitter has their own, little ways, things that they tell you to do, and basically it has to be like less than 500 words, and you have to bring it to the Twitter secretary at 1355 Market Street. So pretty straightforward. I got a person, found a person who owns $2,000 worth of stock to agree to let me use his name and to do the legwork that he needed to do. Here's I know for the people that are here at least, here's a sample proposal. This is proposal number 1. It's pretty short. It just describes what the thing is. There has to be a section called vote required. So you'll see that on mine too. I just copy pasted. All these vote requireds were the same in the examples. Some of the examples did what I did, which is really saying specifically, we asked stockholders to vote for the following resolution, and then I outlined the resolution. Some of the proposals didn't have that. So I made my resolution super simple because my experience is, especially when you have bag of cats, which I think is great, is, you want to pick the one thing that everyone agrees on. Where does everybody overlap? And there's all kinds of people that want to have Twitter, that want to have a say in decisions that Twitter makes. They have a million different ideas of what the outcome is, but we all agree that we all want to have a say. And so I'm asking for something basically we're in voter registration mode. You know what I mean? We just want help doing voter registration. So that's what my resolution is about. I would be happy. So you can see the skeleton of my argument basically is that users add value to Twitter, and Twitter users value Twitter, and Twitter users are experts. I feel like these are the 3 arguments. And whatever, we can flesh this out, make it nicer to read. I think that, okay. And then I have an example, I just think it would be easy if they partnered with Loyal3. What I envision happening is I'll be able to get this on, unless Twitter gives me too much problems. And then from now until March, we'll be getting people to sign up and become shareholders, as many people as possible. And then in May, bring as many people as possible to the meeting itself. And it's true, there's really not that many people at these meetings. They have a public comment time. There's like definitely less than 24 people, maybe only 12 that actually comment. So if there were 5 people, that would be notable. If there were 10, that would be really surprising. Like I know for a fact that we can have 5 people. Our like reach goal would be 50. And then just have everybody like kind of take a minute or whatever and ask for this main thing, which is make it easier for Twitter users to become owners. And then maybe also ask for the other thing that you like, right? Like I would ask for this, and then also there's like a specific feature request that I want. But whatever it is, you know what I mean? So they can understand that these are users and that we're engaged, that we care. And then what would happen, like, so one thing is that during the voter registration time, there might be press attention, right? And then there'll be an opportunity perhaps for anyone to, like, whoever people get in touch with, or like if we're good at networking, to try to meet with some of the representatives of like the pension funds or whatever, CalPERS, who owns tons of stock. Like the nice thing about this is that it's really mild mannered, and it could be possible that like we could we could lobby some people who own a lot of stock to actually vote for it. If not, like the press listens to that meeting, and it's San Francisco has like a history of organizing. Like there's like an easy, nice news story that you could tell, which is like, this is what you get for being headquartered in San Francisco. Public comment comes to Twitter, and so then we get some press then, and then see what happens next. Basically, is my path for doing stuff. So that's the idea. That's my idea.
Solid. Okay, so let's try to do something creative and backwards. Why don't we go around briefly, and for a few seconds each, whoever really wants to, let's say what could possibly go wrong with this. Let's try to de-risk this approach so that we can then embrace digging in and hashing out what we should and could do ourselves and other folks we know. And just to recap, I'll try to do my best to recap the approach. It's to draft a short and sweet and enjoyable to read proposal that requests Twitter to do due diligence to legitimately explore its options for users as owners. Voila. So what do people think could possibly go wrong? Or just mild doubts?
One thing that could go wrong is that we all say, yes, cool proposal, and that the ownership for bringing this project forward is like, it just stays with 1-2 people, and it's just too much work to make it happen. So to really have a committed team that is aware of what we want to do, and makes a commitment to the steps to the project plan.
I'll jump in really quickly because I've got a 5 o'clock meeting, unfortunately. I think for me, the biggest thing would just be understanding like the procedural points for proposal submission, like to make sure that we are not precluding ourselves, from revising this proposal after it's submitted. And if so, if we're locked in with whatever proposal we submit, to make sure that that wouldn't preclude like further resolution if this one doesn't pass. I think that the idea of inserting oneself into a process to garner press and to start an organizing effort makes a lot of sense to me. We're in our 2nd year of organizing around a bill in California, and the first year was literally just an attempt to get press and get people talking to us. That works so long as them voting it down in May of 2017 doesn't mean we can't return on the proposal in 2018. And I think we should just, from my perspective, de-risking would be mainly around understanding like the procedural points, because otherwise super exciting to just be on the radar.
Yeah, as far as I understand, it's basically just anybody who has $2,000 worth can propose a thing. Each person can only propose one. So generally, like getting a list or becoming those people, is the thing.
So it would just have to be a different person
It would-
proposing it
it
in
could be-
2018. if
No,
this
no,
one
no,
is
it would be the
yeah.
same one.
Can
It's
you say something about?
one
I
at a
think-
time.
I think Jim said if it doesn't get 3% vote on that proposal, that person can't resubmit.
Okay. Well, you wouldn't resubmit the same one anyway.
Yeah.
Good to see you, Matt.
Yeah, nice
I'm
to
sorry to
meet
hear
you.
that early.
Not
It's
at all.
No,
great
nice
to
to
get
meet
everyone
you.
excited to continue the conversation.
Say bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Matt.
Okay,
Um,
other folks who have deep or even shallow concerns.
Can I throw in a comment? Yeah, some procedural issues that Matt was raising. Sonia, you may already know this, but yeah, it's not just $2,000 worth of stock. It also has to be held for at least 1 year by now.
Yeah.
Have you got that?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
This is William again. I'd like to have the lady who's the organizer, maybe she could give us her email or contact information. I'd like to be in touch with her because I want to buy a small amount of Twitter stock and in this cooperative notion. And maybe she could put that in the chat box or something.
William, if I understand it, you're talking about not buying shares in Twitter per se, but in buying shares of a cooperative that would be some kind of other entity that's trying to buy shares.
Well, I'm wondering if it wouldn't make sense for people just to buy shares of Twitter and then send this organizer the information so that, you know, that might be easier. And so I'm hard of hearing, and so I didn't get your name. I apologize. But maybe you could put your name and your contact information in the chat box.
Yeah. Will you do that? I already closed my computer because my battery was low, but yeah, you know, you have my email, right? It's just I could just tell you, it's my name, sonja.trauss@gmail. But also put in, yeah, get in touch with me.
Anyone else?
Yeah. Kind of related to that, probably the mic is over there, right? But kind of related to that question in terms of like what the ownership structure then looks like what's a, not end game, but like what's an outcome or even intermediate outcome that actually matters or like shifts the conversation around Twitter or, you know, shifts decision making, the governance around Twitter. Like, for example, I don't know, what's the ownership structure today? Like, you know, what are like the major shareholders today? Who are the major shareholders today that really, you know, drive decisions or whatever? And is there like a minimum threshold that you have to reach to matter? You know what I mean? Like, so even if it's like 5%, that's a lot, but does it actually matter if there's some hedge fund that holds 25% and is, you know, actively pushing whatever for results, right? So that's kind of the end game, like or what's the bar,
Right.
and I think it's kind of related to the does it matter if it's through like one entity, like a co-op or whatever the entity is, or versus it being whatever, just users independently owning shares, right? Because if it's 5% owned by some organized, you know, body, co-op, whatever it is, it's one thing. But if it's 5% that's being owned by, you know, 1 million users, then I don't know. Will that matter in like bringing
I can
like governance power to users?
speak to that if you want. I mean, one thing is if you reach 5% and you're coordinating, then you have to file 13D with the SEC and you have to disclose each person's holdings. I mean, 5% of $13.5 billion. I don't think we're going to get there tonight. Of the largest shareholders at Twitter, it's Vanguard holds about, the owners, the original owners hold a little bit more than 16%. Then it's Vanguard, Clearbridge, Morgan Stanley, BlackRock, kind of the usual suspects that own 1 or 2% or more. Vanguard owns almost 6%. With regard to the proposal, One problem here is the proposal is written in a way that it might be excludable under I-7 grounds for omission, because it could be argued that it deals with a matter relating to the company's ordinary business operations. Although we could argue on the other side. I think one thing that would make the proposal a little stronger would be to ask for a report on this to shareholders. And then another thing on the proposal is this vote required thing. That's not something that you put in the proposal. That's something that the company puts in their proxy. So you don't have to come up with that. I mean, I like the idea, the proposal. I think looks, you know, you've got the bones of I think a pretty good proposal here.
All right, great, thanks.
But so then to your point, if the major shareholders each own a couple of percentage points, I mean, then if at some point in the future users own 1 or 2 percentage points of the company, that actually matters because it makes you one of the top 5 shareholders or whatever, is that?
Well, if you own 5% and you're coordinating a campaign, like say, if we own 5% in this room and we are now floating up this proposal, then we come under different SEC requirements as far as filing paperwork and whatever.
Mm-hmm. So it's a question of scheduling these problems, right? The problem we have right now is merely getting the right wording. The problem we would have if and when we mobilize huge numbers of people and dollars is certainly one to start preparing for, you know, and such that the ownership structure doesn't backfire, such that don't mobilize as they have, by the way. It's a really interesting point along the way of this campaign. I have seen so many people on all different points of the map say, hey, yeah, X is a freaking problem. We should buy this whole platform. Censored ads are, you know, turning up. We're not being able to run our advertisement. What the hell? This is, you know, grounds for a mutiny. We should buy this platform. So that's definitely something to at least be conscious of, if not work into an eventual follow-up. I don't know if that's something that really intersects with the proposal itself, but like hostile hate group takeover is maybe a footnote or something. Yeah.
And if I could just insert this idea, I think you know, getting the numbers is going to be key, right? So you know, what is it 5%? I know their market cap is like 14 billion, so really it's 7 billion. Is it really 5% of 7 billion that is required? So I think we need to do that, and I think, yeah, key point is like who owns the majority share. So seeing the founder owns 43 million, then Prince Alwad bin Talal 34 million, and then Steve Ballmer 27, and then you think of Jack Dorsey, the current CEO, 15 million. So if all those guys got together, could they, you know, really circumvent this effort? But so I think those things should be thought through. Like if we really, you know, want to determine what the milestone is here and what we're reaching for, like where's the flag in this?
Yeah.
And then I'm thinking, so I'm sorry. So if it is 7 billion, and if we do feel like we can crowdfund and get the users to contribute a significant amount of that, perhaps we could entertain the idea of a open source, peer-to-peer, decentralized Twitter encryption, you know, adding these features that are wanted and take that capital and apply it to something that becomes user owned and owned by the people that build it, as opposed to fighting, you know, all of these folks that have already invested capital.
So the funny thing about politics that I found is that it doesn't actually matter that much whether you have it doesn't matter anyway. All right. It doesn't really matter if you have an actual relevant voting block. What matters is whether your message makes sense and whether you monopolize or occupy the brain space, the face time of decision makers, which includes media. So, I mean, this is how it's already been in my political organizing. Like literally on paper, no one needs to care about anything we do. But our message, more housing is more housing, is like super easy to understand. And we've gotten ourselves, it's like, you know, it's like animals that like puff up their fur and then they look big. And like, that's kind of what works. So that's why I'm not really focused on like if we sign up any amount of people, that will be novel enough. You know, so it's not like what is our percentage, it's like what's our percentage growth. And this is an industry and individuals that are used to thinking that way anyway, right? And Twitter is in an interesting position, like that the fights, the conflicts within Twitter that you know, ruin Jack's life are people saying Twitter's worthless because it doesn't have enough people coming on to use it. You know, it doesn't have enough user growth. And like the thing that's left out of that conversation is how much the current users use it. And that's why I like use the word value twice here, that like we already value Twitter. And if we sign people up and there's like now a media narrative about users valuing Twitter enough to, you know, buy it, then it kind of gives Jack an excuse to be like, well, actually, you know, it puts the thumb on the side of him of like whether he should listen to the users or not. You know, so it's like kind of amorphous, it's kind of vague, it's kind of light touch, but like that's just like how regular organizing works anyway. So that's why I think it could do something. And really, like, we are definitely going to have different factions.
Yeah, right.
That is something that's guaranteed. There are going to be people who sign up for this because they are, you know, hang out with the EFF and they really care about encryption, and they're going to have, you know, that's why you have a platform and there are planks on the platform. And the way that we see, I mean, yeah, look, white supremacists might, you know, have something that they want. And it might be the case that the thing they want and the thing that like the EFF people want could be the same thing. You know, sometimes you have politics making strange bedfellows. I just don't think there's going to be enough of them for it to matter. You know, in my club right now, I have people that the vast majority of my members are like, wow, person's nuts. But there's only a couple of them. And, you know, the people that do the most organizing or start the thing set the tone. You know, so at the end of the day, like, we'll be the ones that are active. There might be white supremacists that want to join on board. You know, we can be like, you're welcome to come here, but we disagree with you, so it might not be that fun for you. And then so far, that's been all right. But yeah, maybe they'll get the idea. I don't know. I just don't think there's enough of them. But maybe I'm too optimistic.
How about from other folks, other concerns that we should wrestle down? I'll quickly
can I
pause
say
and
something?
say, yeah,
go
one
ahead.
last thing is, so we have about 15, maybe a little more time left, 15 minutes. And also, we have until Friday to push this proposal, to, you know, sign off on it, let the person who remains unnamed right now, you know, submit it. So,
Well, I'm submitting it no matter what.
right. Sorry, what I mean is to say that, you
Like
know,
to add comments.
yeah.
Yeah, 9 in the morning, I'll print it out.
So there we go.
Yeah.
So between now and the end of today, it's a question of what else should we ask ourselves? And then between now and Friday, it's a question of what ought we to do offline at our computers, sort of, you know, simultaneously around this proposal or other, you know, other pieces. So let's talk first about Friday. And then we can figure out how to use this last 10, 15 minutes, 15, 20 minutes, you know, here in terms of while we're all together. So anyone have any real obvious steps or action that you see necessary between now and Friday?
No, I don't know. I was going to ask. I don't know if this is between now and Friday, but I was curious if has there been like engagement conversation with like major power users that have. I'm just stuck.
Yeah.
The Chris Sakas of the
Right.
to other.
Absolutely, there has been. Yeah. So two people who were supposed to be here couldn't. This woman, Dre, and this woman, Rachel. Rachel was actually on a conversation last Friday, does IP law. She and her wife have been in tech for many years. And I believe actually it was, so it's the two of them, I'm not sure which of them, but they've had conversations with like Chris Sacca, who's a major activist and a major investor, has shares, huge shares in Twitter and like 7 other companies that you may use daily. So there are, let's call them, you know, influencers. I shudder to use that word, that we can reach out to. Between now and Friday, I don't know.
But that's not the goal, right?
Right.
Between now and Friday is just to structure this in a way that allows ourselves the forum to pursue that. And when that forum, and that deadline comes, then we can have those steps. Right? Is that
Yes, yes.
So I guess what is the ultimate goal of this resolution? Is just
It's make it
$2,000
easy.
and to get it passed. And I think the one gentleman raised the point of not limiting or not introducing language that would get it thrown out. So just, I guess, making sure that they can't take anything that's included here and use it to not entertain the resolution going forward. I would say that's probably the goal, right? Just working in a way that they can't throw it out.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, to me, a resounding, amazing success would be if they actually were like, yeah, sure. What if they did actually partner with Loyal Free? Like, what if you could open your Twitter app and like it was available for everyone? Like, do you want to buy some of Twitter? That would be insane. And then we'd see how many people wound up doing it. And that would be amazing.
I actually didn't know Loyal 3. How is that? How has Loyal 3 worked in other companies or other apps, or how does it? Are there other examples where Loyal 3?
Oh, no.
Yeah.
So apparently, no, not with Loyal Free. Apparently, there was some. I feel like it was like Microsoft or some other. I don't know what it was. There was some other company at some time that entertained the idea of trying to do like in-app purchase of stock. And I don't know, it never went anywhere. But that was before Loyal Free was invented. And the thing about Loyal Free is that, I mean, it's just so easy. Like I've never even seen one so easy. So. And they're also located in SF. I mean, once this thing's on, I'm obviously gonna contact them and be like, hey, idiots, you better organize all your friends to ask for this, because that would be, I mean, it just seems like that would be good for them too.
Does any of you know much about didn't Reddit at some point do like part of their offering, like $50 million to their power users?
They thought about it.
Did they do that?
So I think Sam Altman wrote actually an op-ed in the New York Times saying we're going to try a cooperative model. If they went through with it, I hadn't heard a peep about it, but there was certainly a huge to-do about Reddit being, you know, quote, democratized.
Oh yeah, it just says plans to share stock with
Yeah.
the community, so I don't know. This is enough $50 million.
But that's
round to
precedent,
do it.
right? So look and see.
In 2014, they announced round shared 10% with users. We know, I mean, we're investors in Collaborative Fund, and they're investors in Reddit. And ask them if they know anything about the.
Wait, is Reddit publicly traded?
No, so this was still in the private market.
Well, they got,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, right. Yeah.
But that's good precedent, right? So look and see what challenges they had, you know, what can be exposed through their process of attempting to do this and clearly failing, but still build on that experience.
Right. Jim, a question for you. In all of your past history of shareholder organizing and advocacy, what have you seen as necessary to so-called like to make the case, right? So what kind of evidence or examples, like Anna was just saying, do we need to mention, if any, in this proposal to say, hey, this is credible?
Well, I think
when I say need to, I mean that in a very strict way, right? Like we can cobble together all kinds of Green Bay Packer analogies and so on, but you know, if you can help us understand a little bit about how required it is to add real hard evidence in the proposal.
Yeah, well, I think a couple things. One thing is, I was just wondering, So Sonia says she has a shareholder. Does the shareholder own through Loyal 3 or do they own through a normal broker?
They have a broker with Fidelity, so they call
Okay.
the broker today.
All
The
right.
broker's gonna send them a letter tomorrow.
Yeah, okay. All right.
Yeah.
So, well, one thing is you don't want to have the letter before you file the proposal. You get the letter after you file the proposal. Otherwise, you'll have to get another letter. But secondly, so to Danny's question with regard to what you put in, I mean, I think a good thing to do would be to look at, say, climate change proposals and see, okay, you know, how, I mean, oftentimes in climate change proposals, they are trying to show the importance of climate change and the risk and whatever. And so, you know, we would be pointing out that Twitter is at risk of losing its users if it doesn't identify, you know, if it doesn't meet their needs. And so you want to create ways for users to have input. And so anyway, whatever, there'll be a lot of information about why this proposal is good. I can help you work on the
That would be awesome.
resolved resolution. I can also help you work on kind of a legal letter that you would send to the person that has the shares, authorizing you to present the proposal and to shepherd the proposal through the process, that kind of thing. So I can give you those documents, sample documents.
That would be great.
Okay, so we've got about 10 minutes left together. Let's turn it around, instead of other things that should be done in general, to other things that people in the room want to volunteer for. And I'll quickly start by saying, with Manuela's concern and care for how we are and how we come together as a group in supporting the open participation. Minus hate groups. But yeah, all kidding aside, I'm keen to see this through to Friday and a little bit beyond, and then sort of a slow, procession to beyond into May or whatever it is. And second thing with that is, there's been a bit of conversation so far already here about how do we find these people? Like William was saying, hey, I want to buy some shares. So I'm thinking right now about going back to the original petition or something like it, which was just a simple page saying, hey, we're a large group of people concerned about this thing. Sign up here. If you are curious, check this box if you're a shareholder. We're going to build a list of people who are about this, and we can push that number to Twitter. We can also obviously have conversations with those people and see what they want to, what to offer and volunteer. So that's my sort of, to keep the lightning rod up after this, kind of buy the whole thing campaign starts to wind down, to have some kind of way for people to keep learning and getting involved. That's my idea. Well,
It's like a website or Facebook page.
Basically.
Does Buy Twitter already have a Facebook page?
It does not. Ironic. Yeah, it does not.
Well, a Twitter account, I guess.
Absolutely, it does.
Yeah, I don't want to volunteer to do that, but it would be good to do that. Honestly, I just don't want to make another website. It's like a 6-hour project.
Other folks have things that they'd like to get into, and it doesn't have to be an offer. It can be something that you think is curious for yourself, that you think is allied or is maybe resonant with this this petition and whatever comes after it. Sorry, this proposal.
Oh, I do. So wait, can you send a message to the people that signed the petition and just tell them how to buy stock and tell them that there'll be something to vote on?
Where's the petition? We are twitter.global. It's on change.org right now. It could use some clarity for language, but we certainly can message people whatever we want.
Yeah.
Hey guys, sunny day in California, how are you doing? We could say that if we wanted to. So.
All right, yeah, as soon as I know that this is definitely on, then you'll be able to write an email and be like, hey, check this out. Like, and then encourage people to join so that they can vote for it.
That's right.
I'd like to be further in contact with the project, and I feel there's a high commitment. There's a lot of knowledge. There are a lot of resources to make this happen. and I see it's going on a very high speed. And I believe the high speed is necessary, but I'm just like also concerned about the personal resources. And I just like, maybe I can contribute to helping to slow down the project in a way to see the shortcuts to make it happen as well. So this is what I'm interested in general, in how collaboration and trust can evolve to learn from the project and also, share my knowledge around it.
Anyone else on the web that's muted want to chime in? I guess that, yeah, Mark, go ahead.
Okay, yeah. Well, I'm good for now. I'll stay in touch with Jim on how he's helping with that, and maybe I could chip in a bit there. Otherwise, yeah,
You want to type, you were saying?
No, I'm gonna stay in touch with Jim McRitchie. Jim McRitchie is helping with this proposal. I will stay in touch with Jim and contribute also. Also, I'm on the Lumio group, and I have, as you've probably seen that.
Right.
I have
Okay,
some
so just to
proposals there.
recap, since the audio was a little patchy, you're going to stay in touch with Jim, and you're going to keep watching the Lumio discussion group and having to say there as well.
Yeah, I mean, there's a main proposal that I made there that I'm still pretty committed to.
Right. So just to give that some airtime, and has been alluded to already, there's an idea of an asset acquisition co-op, which could facilitate some of the eventually SEC noteworthy activity. But until then, it would be this kind of buying club. That's not exactly accurate, but yeah, Mark made a proposal around a co-op that would do this kind of stuff. You can check out the Lumio group through the Twitter account. There's a link right to it and see what he's talking about. I think that's a vital piece, and I think this activity, even if the proposal gets eviscerated, the people who come together on this still seem to be acting out a kind of acquisition cooperative. So a lot of lessons, a lot of sort of byproducts of this effort that are all valuable. Let's see, we've got Jim and Paige still there, and I guess everyone in the room who wants to have a final comment or proposal or whatever.
I just want to have a pitch for how cool this could wind up being, right? Because very literally, we have 3 months to send out to our networks, right? There's so many people, not like there's Black Lives Matter people, there's like pro-diversity on Twitter people, there's so many people that are committed to Twitter, that love it, that have a strong opinion, And like, if we could get 2 or 3 people from each of those communities to come to the public hearing, to like make a statement, like, especially with political organizers, it's just, I mean, I guess I'm an organizer by nature. So I'm just excited to have like a mini conference of organizers. Maybe is what this is about. But yeah, but I just think that there's like a lot of really interesting things that could come out of it, especially considering the personality of Jack. And at public comment, he has to respond to every single person. So every single comment, there could be like 50 comments. They could be there for hours, and it literally does not matter if we only have 0.01% of the vote, if Jack himself has to spend 7 hours listening to people. And then, yeah, so this is a thing. It's democracy.
Yeah. Should we end on that note, or does anyone else have anything else to share? Okay, so point of order or whatever, just for House, I'm going to drop this link again in the chat. I'm going to send it out to everyone who's here. It's in the Facebook group already. So between now and Friday, let's see through de-risking, debugging, making this thing unrejectable. And we'll kick it in. Jim and Sonia, you guys are in touch, or I'll put you in touch if not. And
good.
Then we can slowly build House around this. I think we've got some really excellent potential and in a somewhat streamlined way, surprisingly.
Great. If I can get people's email addresses that I might be working with, I'm very crunched for time tomorrow, so I can give you something, but it's easier for me to just put it into email than going through whatever it is here, Google Docs.
Yeah, if you see my email.
Well, Danny can give it.
Yeah.
Danny can give it to me.
Go ahead. Oh, yeah, no, I've got
Well,
your.
just email it to me.
Every good meeting ends with that. And on that note,
Thank you.
thanks, everybody.